Are you a targeted individual? Are you a targeted person? Are you a subject to someone's game? And if so, whose game is it? There are so many different games going um, on this earth that we live in, where people are used as game pieces on a real life game board. And sometimes there is an actual bet or gamble against your life whether you'll make it or not by some pretty crafty people. They're betting money on you, and they're waging bets against your life or for your life on whether you will make it or not. People are afraid to talk about things like this, but the reality is that it's very real and it's very true that some people are selected to be a part of this human game board. It doesn't matter what country, but especially the United States of America, the playground for every other nation. So you're sitting, minding your business, and you get online, you see a post or news article or something a politician stated. You make a comment disagreeing with what that person stated, and you introduce a resolve that is more cunning, it's more keen. You articulate it better than the actual politician that attempted to create a scenario for the general public to get votes. And that politician becomes evilly eradicated. And you become the target. So let's call this person Christy Cadillac. Christy Cadillac made a comment online that someone didn't like that was in power. Christy is a manager, let's say at Chick-fil-A. She makes $115,000 a year. Good credit. Christy's a virgin. Never been married. She tries to live a clean life. Pays her bills on time. Her car is paid for. Christy is fiscally responsible. And all of a sudden, there are complaints coming into Chick-fil-A about Christy. Christy was seen snorting cocaine. Christy was seen dealing cocaine. And the person that called is a school principal who wants to remain anonymous at Blazer Elementary School. And freaking, let's see, what can we use? What city is the best example to use? Pardon me, I'm stuck on the city because it can happen to anyone, anywhere. Say Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Okay? So, all right, well, suddenly, Christy is asked to take a drug test for Chick-fil-A. And when she goes to take her drug test for Chick-fil-A, the person that facilitates the drug test was a recent transfer from Kansas City by the name of Wayne Dector. Wayne takes Christy's urine and puts cocaine in it, tests it, sends her results back to Chick-fil-A. Christy fails the drug test. She's like, how on earth did I fail the drug test? I've never done drugs in my life. Christy's fired. Not only is Christy fired, but the car she paid cash for, as she leaves with notice of termination, as she leaves, she goes to grab some ice cream at Baskin Robbins. While she's sitting there at Baskin Robbins, someone hits her car while it's parked. Hits the car, totals it out. Christy files an insurance claim. The insurance company, let's use Gecko for a real life example. Gecko's like, yeah, well, the other person states that you were in the car and you ran into them, so we're going to deny your claim. But isn't there surveillance footage? It doesn't matter. We're the insurance company. If you want, you can sue Gecko. But we're not going to honor your claim. Christy doesn't have a car anymore. Christy has in her savings account, after paying tithes to her church. By the way, the Lord never asked us to give him money. She has about, $40,000 left. So Christy goes and she gets a rental car. Christy can't seem to buy another car at any dealership in her city because she's been labeled a drug dealer. So Christy continues to rental car. 6 months go by. She's paid all of her bills in time, but the 6th month, with $40,000 left, Christy has $900 left after paying for the rental car. She can't find another job. Christy was renting an apartment. She didn't own a house. So now Christy can't pay her rent. And she's sitting at a park, talking to God, trying to figure out what's going on, right? So, as she's trying to figure out what's going on, a man approaches her. Older, big belly, like disgusting looking, creepy guy. In any way, any race you want to imagine that. He talks to her, tell her how pretty she is, and she needs any help or assistance. And Chrissy's like, what? Help or assistance? What are you talking about? You need some bills paid, And Chrissy's like, no, I'm good. You don't want your bills paid, the man says. Chrissy's like, no. I'm good. I don't need my bills paid. Okay, the man says. The man walks off, makes a note of it, puts it into the dark web, into the special website that they have for targeted individuals, documenting each attack on your life. And Christy her first note has been made. Another month goes by. Christy looks for help. She goes to her church. Her church is like, listen, we can't help you. We don't have money for that. Christy's like, look, I've been going here for 2 years. But you don't come every Sunday, Christy. You don't volunteer enough. But I've given this church over 10%. I give this church 20% of my paycheck. Are you not going to help me? The church is like, listen, it's not our responsibility to help you. Christy goes to a homeless shelter. And she has to turn in her rental car because she has no more money left. No one would give her a job. Even the savings that she had an extra $10,000 in savings. That's gone. So Christy has to go to a shelter. She gets to a homeless shelter. She walks into the homeless shelter. She's been there for 3 weeks. Suddenly, somebody walks into the homeless shelter with a lawsuit. Oh, it's her old landlord, because Christy couldn't afford to pay rent. And she's being sued for the remaining balance of what she owed for the lease term, besides getting evicted, right? So they walk into the homeless shelter, send a special service processor. But before that processor leaves, the processor speaks with the community director of the shelter. Suddenly, the next day, Christy is evicted from the homeless shelter based on suspicion of doing drugs. This is how they get you guys. Christy has no place to go. She has $5 in her pocket that someone gave her in the homeless shelter. Christy goes to the Greyhound station. You can't stay at the Greyhound station because it's prohibited if you don't have a ticket. Christy wanders around, and suddenly Christy is on the streets. She's sleeping on the streets. She's sleeping. Irregardless to what Christy is doing and how she's sleeping, she's so clean. She looks really good, but her shoes are starting to wear and tear. Because when they put her out, they evicted her. She put all her things in storage, but she's unable to pay her storage bill right now because her new shoes are her other shoes are in the storage company, and so her things are about to get ready to get auctioned off. And from her storage unit, she can't pay the storage bill. So now, what is it now, you guys? Christy's homeless. She's out on the streets. She has no money. What is Christy supposed to do? She goes to the library like any smart girl would do. Christy's 30 years old, by the way. Goes to the library. While she's at the library, she's approached. This time, the guy is good looking. Middle age. Probably a little older than Christy. Maybe younger. And he approaches her and he asks, if you need any assistance, let me know. Here's my card. She's like, what kind of assistance? He was like, if you need something, let me know. He was like, look, I go to church, so I believe in God. She's like, oh, me too. She calls this guy later. Say 2 weeks later, this Christian going Freemason type of man is like, hey, Christy, what's up? She's like, remember you told me if I need anything, I can call you. And I know we just met, but I was just trying to get a hotel room for today because of my situation, which I'm sure you know of. He was like, yeah, I noticed, but I didn't want to say anything. He's like, cool, I'll get you a hotel room, but I'll have to stay in there with you for the night. She's like, what do you mean? He's like, don't worry, I'll take care of you. Christy hangs up the phone, realizing that he's trying to solicit her. And by the way, you guys, I'm doing this story, and I noticed this man in a Honda looking at me with his shades on. Yeah, you're looking at me. I sure am talking about you. He's looking at me like he knows I'm talking, so there must be something in my car. He hasn't gotten out of the restaurant. He's just sitting there. He hasn't gotten out. He hasn't ordered anything. He just came from the other parking lot that I'm sitting in around to the other restaurant. He's just listening. It looks like he's listening. Could I be far-fetched? Possibly. Let's get back to Christy. So Christy now is subject to prostitution. And I'm going to stop the story there. From there, Christy is homeless for the next year and a half. And she's bombarded with becoming a prostitute. No one will give her a job. How does she eat? She goes to homeless shelters, other homeless shelters, day shelters. They feed her. She eats. She showers. Every now and then, God will bless her with money she just finds on the ground to keep her clothes clean. She cannot find another job. Christy has a bachelor's degree in communications, and she cannot find another job. No one will hire her. She got a cell phone. Her cell phone got disconnected. She got a cell phone from a shelter. No one will hire her. Christy's been praying, but she has not been saying the right prayers. What do you do? What do you do in this type of situation like this, where life happens because you made a commentary, or life happens because you just did something brilliant or smart that someone else with a certain amount of knowledge and experience, they could be a federal agent, they took offense by. They put you on a game board. The goal is to take Christy from being this austere young lady at Chick-fil-A that was a manager to become a crack addicted prostitute. And from there, this politician's still not satisfied. 2 years later, this girl's life still has not been restored. But while Christy is crying, while she's asking God to help her, while she's fighting off temptation, while she's fighting off, she has no interest, first of all, in having sex now. That's just not it. And so I'm wrong about the guy from the restaurant because he just got his food. But it was just really odd. He keeps staring at me. What are you staring at? Anyway. But Christy's fighting through. And this is her Job season. What do you do when you're a nice-looking young lady and even guys that came up to Christy that were not a part of the game became a part of it? When someone contacted them and said, Christy's a drug dealer. She sold drugs at an elementary school. You don't want to talk to her. She looks sweet, but don't trust her. She'll steal from you. And the guy backs off. Wanting to care for her, he backs off. And they introduce him to somebody else. people can be by the hundreds, monitoring and being paid to sabotage your life to little pieces to the point where you would want to take your life. It's very real. I hope you understood that example. In the future, I may remake it if I talk too fast, but I'm not going to remake it right now. I'm going to put it online. And if you understand it, please note, I'm sure this has happened almost to the T somewhere. May not have been Chick-fil-A, They're a Christian restaurant. They don't listen to rumors. No politician can call Chick-fil-A and pay them to fire somebody or whatever. They don't have strings like that, right? It may not be a politician, you guys. It could just be something that you've done. You wrote a book. You put something in there nobody should know based upon some private secret society or organization. You put something in there and they want you silenced. They want you silenced because you said no during a Q&A at a sales seminar to someone who's narcissistic, who is not used to people telling them no, who just happens to have $30 million in the bank and enough money and connections to mess with you since you embarrassed them and told them no because you are a free thinker. I hope you understand. And believe me, if you're going through this, you can pray your way out of it, but you can't pray those cute prayers. You have to call out your enemy, even if you don't know their name. Specifically, you have to call war upon them in the name of Yeshua. Do it now. Believe it. Study God's word. Learn the names of God and call them. It is not too late. But let me tell you this. If you're not a believer, it's going to sting a lot worse. But if you're a believer, you know there is always victory in the end.